Someone asked me a really good question today. It's a question I get on occasion, and I thought it would make a good video. So the question is, should I work on emotion work, shadow work, before awakening, or just go for awakening? So my answer, generally speaking, is strike while the iron is hot. Meaning, if you have a sincere inclination to penetrate identity, something inside of you instinctually resonates with this message that the identity construct, what you take yourself to be, is not the most fundamental truth, not even close. If you resonate with that, if that makes sense to you instinctually, deep down in a place beyond where you can talk about, then my answer generally is just orient toward awakening rather than trying to do preparatory work, trying to smooth the process ahead of time, or worse, believing that there's a set of conditions that have to be met, a certain equanimity that has to be realized before you wake up. It's just not true. Awakening, in one sense, is a freebie. You really know what the word grace means when this transformation occurs, because it truly is undeserved. It's so beyond the human dimension when you first taste that impossible combination of expansiveness and intimacy that it's really obvious you can't do that. You can't just make yourself wake up. You can't decide how it's going to be ahead of time, plan it out, and then go about the undertaking of awakening in the way the mind would think about it. So the mere realization that this is just beyond what you consider yourself to be, the dimension of you as you know yourself, understand yourself, and even the world as you know and understand it. This is just so far beyond that, in a sense, that it's very obvious that it wasn't your own doing. It's kind of like magic, but it's also very paradoxical because it's also quite natural. It is already this way, but it's not a way. It's not a paradigm or a view, not a way of thinking, not a specific view, frame of reference, orientation. It's none of that. It's an instinctual knowing that goes beyond identity, that's free of a particular or single identity. So from that perspective, it's obvious that this isn't something you can prepare for in the way that you might imagine. Now, I should mention, there certainly are traditions that emphasize preparation to the degree that they might even suggest that awakening or realization or enlightenment is something you have absolutely no control over, may not happen in this lifetime, but may happen in 3 or 4 lifetimes if you work really hard, you acquire enough merit, you orient yourself the right way in this lifetime, follow all the precepts, etc., etc. Maybe you'll get lucky and wake up next life or the life after, etc. Obviously, that's not my approach, and I don't buy it at all, actually. I think it's a misinterpretation of ancient texts of the Dharma. So that extreme view that really all you can do is just work really hard in this life, try to acquire merit, try to reduce your karmic debt, that isn't what I'm talking about when I talk about awakening. When I'm talking about awakening, it's much more immediate. It's incredibly immediate. It's right now and right here, the only place it could ever occur. And you don't have to pay off your karmic debt to earn that. It's not earnable in that way. Now, the traditions that say you have to do all this work, or you should do all this work, aren't entirely wrong. There is a lot of work that goes into this, but it comes after awakening for many people. Now, sometimes it's a combination. There's a certain amount of preparatory work, although it doesn't feel like preparatory work. It feels like buying into your own paradigms about what spirituality is for a while and stumbling over yourself again and again, pulling the rug out from under yourself again and again, seeing how the ego co-opts everything you try to do, especially when it comes to spirituality. Sometimes that's the preparatory work, just seeing enough of that before you're really ready to surrender. You're really ready to go beyond the confines and the constraints of identity. So in that sense, sometimes that work is necessary. But again, it's not something you're going to be overtly aware of. You'll just find yourself being interested in different types of spiritual practices or groups. And if you're honest with yourself, authentic and observant, you'll notice there's an underlying dissatisfaction that's creeping into all of these practices, these areas. Something says, no, I want to really go beyond. I want to breach the veil, and I want to do it now, as soon as possible. It's my number one priority. It's my only priority. When you're there, that preparatory work is done. And from there, you typically don't have to do a bunch of emotion work to prepare yourself. You will have gone past the paradigms that you can prepare yourself for something, because you'll see that just gets co-opted. So that's when you're ready. So when you're ready, as I say, strike when the iron is hot. Let's dig in. Let's go for the boundaries of identity. Let's get real. Let's get as direct as possible and inquire into what it is you take yourself to be. You feel like you're someone? Let's look and find it. You believe all those thoughts about yourself, your history, your past, where you're going, what you want. Let's look into what a thought is. Let's look really, really closely at our experience. That's what I mean by strike while the iron is hot. So generally speaking, I just chat with someone for a few minutes to really discern what they're interested in, what they're actually after. And if it's coming down to identity, they've exhausted their belief that they can make life the way they want it to make themselves happy and be in control all the time and avoid pain using spirituality. When you've exhausted all those illusions, then you're ready. So from there, it's just a matter of let's find the right question, the right orientation, what really resonates with you, what pushes you beyond conception, beyond your orientations to time and memory, beliefs, everything you've learned about yourself. How do we get you past that? And there are a lot of tricks. I have playlists on this stuff, so many videos that point to different types of inquiry, self-inquiry, unpointed approach, using koans. There's a lot of ways to do this, to breach this veil. But once you know what that means, if you feel what I'm talking about, that's it. Just orient yourself to it. Now, the mind can sometimes get twisted up with this, because as I said earlier in the video, you can't just snap your fingers and wake up. You, as what you take yourself to be, or let's say the ego, which is a false identity, it's a collection of tendencies of mind, that can't decide to go beyond itself. And that's true. But here's an analogy for you. Many years ago, I went bungee jumping. And for whatever reason, I wasn't scared to step off the edge. I felt the fear, I felt the intensity, but I was able to just step off and watch what happened. But the person before me wasn't able to. She wanted to jump, she wanted to go bungee jumping, and she was willing to do it. But for whatever reason, she couldn't actually take the step for herself. So the willingness was there, but the will to actually commit the act of jumping off of a cliff just couldn't be accessed. So what she did was turned around and they held the bungee cord and let her lean back. And then without her deciding when, they let go. And she was able to agree to doing that. She was able to put herself in a situation where falling off that cliff with the cord attached was imminent. It was going to happen, but she couldn't actually get herself to do it. When you quote unquote decide to wake up, it's like that. Again, you know, or at least you feel what's at stake, which is everything you know. It's the way you know yourself is at stake, which is everything. It colors all of your experience of everything: the world, others, relationships, life, death, emotion, pain, joy. All of that is colored by your perception of self. And you instinctually know that, and you're willing to go beyond that. So what that means is you're saying to the universe, or you're saying to reality, or God, or the Dharma, or the unknown, or the unborn, you're saying, okay, I'm ready. That's what you can do. That's the willingness. You can't snap your fingers and decide to wake up this second, but you can die into this second. You can be willing to let it all go now, now, now. Carry that with you until it becomes a one-pointed burning, a letting go that never ends, a willingness to not grasp onto the next thought, not grasp onto the next intention, not orient to the next identity or belief. That's the willingness. That's leaning back and letting life hold the bungee cord. You don't know when you're going to drop, but if you're serious about this and you make that, let's call it a prayer, intention to wake up above all else, life's going to let go of that cord sooner or later.